Man, this conversation with Sasha Tozzi is going to blow you away. She goes really deep into her issues with mental health and with addiction, and she's going to really take us along her journey as she just recounts all of her story, and it's just beautiful. Sasha Tozzi is a recovery and life coach and healer. She's somebody that you definitely want to get connected to. So buckle up, let's get going.
Here, we want to show you what's possible in the world of sobriety. We introduce you to the various tools, programs, and resources available, because there are way more options than you may even realize. We want you to find the one that works for you.
And we do it through people. People who share their pathway to recovery and will help you find your path to freedom. Because getting sober can feel hard enough. You don't have to do it alone. I'm Sarah Roberts.
And I'm Roger DeVoe, and this is Sobriety Starts Here.
Sasha Tozzi is with me today for a conversation that I can't wait to delve into. In fact, before we hit record, I said, no, I don't want to keep talking. I want this to be fresh so that we're all learning together about Sasha's story. So welcome to this conversation, Sasha. How are you?
Thank you, Sarah. I'm great.
Awesome. Excellent.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Well, it's great to have you here. So I want to jump right into it. You are a recovery and life coach and healer, and I want to know a little bit more about what that is and how it works and who you serve. So let's start with what is a life and recovery and life coach and healer? What is it that you do?
Good question. So I just want to say, first of all, that it's really evolved over time. Like, I started as a health coach. I then became a recovery coach. I then kind of just my title and sort of what encapsulates what I do with people has just evolved. And so I approach so what I do is when I'm working with a client, like, I approach their life from a recovery perspective, right? And I blend coaching techniques with healing techniques. I come from a psychology background, and so a lot of the techniques are like a little bit more therapeutic than a lot of what you see in the coaching world. But I also have my coaching certification. I have yoga certification. I have a Reiki energy healing certification. So it's really just blending all that to work with somebody to deliver to them what they need. Like, and so it can look like anything, but it's coming from that approach of, like, kind of coaching, healing, like to like meet them where they are and help them move forward.
I love that you said meet them where they are. And I know that on your website you have, when people are interested in working with you, they have to go through a sort of a mini interview so that you know where they are. Because I think that's so key of being able to meet them where they are. They have to be sharing with you where they're at right now and then where they want to go. And then that is how you develop your program. So it's sounding like everything's really customizable.
So customizable. And so I don't want my programs, even though, like, I do 3 months and 6 months, I don't really have a formula. They're so individual to what that person needs that I draw from several different tools from the toolbox that have worked for a lot of people and that have worked for me, but it's still going to be individual to that person and what I learn about them as we go along. And so that intake really helps me know, like, where they are, and actually it helps me assess their level of readiness and just honestly if I'm the best person to even work with them.
So walk us through what it might be like. And I know that you were saying that it's, super customizable, really. It's a unique approach to each individual, but walk us through what is the experience like to work with you? So is it phone calls? Is it meetings one-on-one? Is it both? Is it video chats? Like, how do you structure your program a little bit?
Yeah. So the calls are either by phone or by Skype. So it really depends on, it's the client's preference. Honestly, I don't have a preference. Well, actually, well, there's pros and cons to each. To talking to someone face to face, a lot of times it helps with that connection. You get to look people in the eyes, but sometimes it can be distracting, or sometimes it allows you to not be as honest as you would be on the phone. It's a really interesting little phenomenon. So, but I do either phone or Skype, and that's also dependent on like where in the world the person is. Like there's one of my clients I always Skype with because she's super far away and we can't talk on the phone, right? And so the session is going to be an hour long, and we get on the phone, and we I usually either start or end with a guided meditation. So walking them through like getting relaxed in their bodies and kind of getting centered to get a lot more out of the session. And then so the way that I work is like I only take on a certain number of clients so that I can really like hold space for them in like just really be present for them and have a deep soul connection. And so so I kind of get to know the person like and we get comfortable with each other. I mean, like they get comfortable with me and I get comfortable with them, but it's really like it's really opening that door to like kind of how do I want to say this? Like creating the comfort level for them to really take their guard down so that real change can happen.
I think that's such an important point because I know a lot of people have worked with people or are considering working with people, and there is that fear of really shedding those layers and getting rid of that and really being vulnerable and allowing the process to flow. And I find that that's such an inhibitor when people are unwilling to sort of peel away that to be vulnerable. I find that that's such it means that they're not getting the level of results that they want in their lives. So I think it's really important that that sort of discussed and that foundation is kind of created early on, because you can make so much headway if that is happening right at the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to establish the sense of trust from the beginning so that they can get the results that they want. And I can usually tell at the beginning, like, so people will fill out the intake questionnaire, and then I'll invite them to have a free consultation where we get to see on the phone if we're a fit, if we're like a mutual fit, if things are flowing, if, what I offer is going to meet their goals and meet their needs. And that's where I can see if like, not only assess the readiness, but also see if we'll be able to like, I sort of look at it as, I know this is going to sound bizarre, but like there's a chemistry factor, and you want to feel connected so that they feel comfortable enough to really just, like you said, be vulnerable, and so that they can change.
Absolutely. So how does that work then? Is that a complimentary initial consultation? Is that how you structure it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's free for the first chance. So you really have that opportunity to see whether or not you're the person that they want to work with. I really respect that you do it that way. I know a lot of people, do it differently, but I like that you're having that sort of exploratory conversation to make sure that you're a fit on both sides. And then how do you do it? So is it once a week, once a month? How often do you connect with people?
For like the 3-month program, it's 10 sessions. So we're going to want to get to those 10 sessions within the 3 months. So it comes out to be about weekly, but it's not quite weekly. So there's like a week off here and there. They have access to me in between sessions via email and actually via text too. And so I just find that the weekly sessions, like especially in the beginning, like I have clients that that I've worked with and then they want to continue working together but on a less frequent basis. And so I'll customize a package for them and it'll be spaced out every other week or monthly check-ins type of things. But when I'm first working with somebody, it really makes the most sense to see each other 3 times a month, as you know, to really get the progress moving and build on the momentum.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So who would you say is kind of your perfect client? Are these people that are new to sobriety, or is it people that have spent some time and are looking to enhance their experience or to just move through blockages? Like, who is your kind of key client?
My ideal client. So I'll answer this. I have 2 different types of ideal clients. So I do like to work with people that are new to sobriety and that are really willing and motivated to quit. I mean, to quit their drug of choice. And I get mostly alcohol. But I work with, I'll essentially work with, my specialties are like codependency, alcohol, food. And so any of those, like, and the client is going to be someone who is like pretty self-aware, men or woman, a man or a woman, but I get mostly women, but I'm so open to working with men too.
Yeah.
I have a few male clients that are just like great to work with. And so I just want to make that clear because I know a lot of people like work with only women or something. And so like a lot of women will only work with women, but I'm much more open to like having to working with a man or a woman. And then also my other ideal client is someone who's been sober and who wants to kind of take their life to the next level. And they might be having struggles with like another type of addiction, like secondary addiction, or this is where I see like a lot of the codependency and like relationship stuff come in. But they also could just be wanting to like kind of like reignite, re-inspire their life in sobriety, like learn how to live even better and thrive.
I love that. So I love that people can jump in with you when they're new, when they're raw and really vulnerable and have no idea sort of how it's going to feel. And you can walk them through that. You can handhold them through those early, shaky, scary days. And then also the people that have some footing that are saying, I just want to enhance this. I just want to have a better life in recovery. And you're able to share those tools. I love that you touch on food. You know, that's near and dear to my heart as well. And I know that your specialty is sort of alcohol. So I do want to get into your story. I want to hear about it. But I first wanted to ask, what is the typical length of time that people work with you? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Or do people typically work with you longer, shorter? What's the usual?
I would say like 3 months is the average.
Yep.
I mean, that's actually well, I used to do 1 month. I used to offer that, but I don't really offer it anymore. I offer email coaching for 1 month, and it's it's something to get started, but it's like a low level of commitment, right? Because it's email and, but it's still like a foot in the door, you know, for someone it's something, it's better than nothing. But 3 months is like my lowest commitment for one-on-one coaching. I have a few people that stick around for longer and that we just continue to work on things. And 6 months, 9 months, a year, it really depends.
Okay, but you would say that 3 months is about the average. So someone can really see some major life changes as far as their life and their recovery within that 90-day stretch of time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, let's dig into it. I know that everybody's interested in hearing your story, how you even came to become a recovery and life coach and healer. And I know that the part about how much work you do in the healing space is going to come into play when we get into your story. So let's
Mm.
pass the microphone to you. I want you to start, wherever you want to, maybe in childhood and how you were raised and how you grew up, and maybe when alcohol became a problem for you. And then, of course, moving into your rock bottom, or whenever you decided to quit, and then of course moving into the rest of your life. So it's all over to you, Sasha. I can't wait to hear about it.
Okay. Wow. So how long do you want this to be?
Well, I mean, it's honestly as long as you want to share your story. Some people go, talk for an hour and a half. Other people, it's an hour. So it's honestly just as much as you'd like to share. Truly, this is your opportunity.
Okay. So cool. So I'll just kind of start and say that, like, so right now I am 32 and I live in the Washington, D.C. area. This is where I grew up. And I got sober. I ended up getting sober when I was 26. So, like, a little over 6 years ago. And um, before that, though, I was introduced to um, it came to my attention that I had like a big problem from the time that I started drinking. Like, so I just kind of dabbled in it when I was in high school, trying it because experimenting, as they call it. Like, oh, I'm going to try this. I grew up, I'm the fourth of 6 kids. And I had the influence of older siblings that were cool, quote unquote cool, and that were kind of fast. And so um, I was exposed to alcohol and drugs, like, from when I was young, because I was younger, right? And they were older, and my siblings were kind of into the partying, and I wanted to be like them, right? And so I went to a party like as a freshman in high school, and I was a really lightweight. Like, I think I was like 90 pounds. I hadn't gone through puberty yet. I was really kind of like little for my age group. When I would stand next to my friends, like, it looked like they were like my babysitters. And so I drank at this upperclassmen party, and I like blacked out immediately. Like, I got sick, I blacked out. Someone had to carry me upstairs to the bed and just like put me to sleep, and that was like gonna be a common scene for my drinking career. Like, I was always being babysat, right? And like, I needed help. I did not like, I was a belligerent blackout binge drinker.
Mhm.
And so, like, kind of, so it became like something at that time. It became something that I used as like a social anxiety tool. Like, I would get drunk, or like have pregame when I was getting dressed to go out to a party, so that I could like talk to people. Otherwise, like, I really couldn't talk at parties. Like, I would rather not go.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was like I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, this is like, the cure. This is going to help me. And especially with guys, I didn't know how to talk to guys, and I was like so shy and whatever. I was like one of those kids that was really self-conscious from like, I mean, that's like super self-conscious even from the time I was like a little girl. I was conscious of like myself and what I looked like to other people, and like what other people were thinking of me, and just that whole thing. And to get out of that, I mean, alcohol is a great, solution to not thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it also allowed me to be someone I wanted to be. Like, I was confident, I was talkative, I got a lot of attention when I was drunk, because people would like notice me and they'd be like, "Oh my God, you're so funny. Like, we thought you were like weird. We thought you were mute," And so it solidified my decision at that time. I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I need. I'm never gonna give this up.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that like there was any other way to get it besides that way.
Right.
And but pretty soon it kind of escalated to like, I mean, it escalated to like severe blackouts where like I was driving home and not remembering how my car got there, and how my car was at my house. In the morning, I'll look out the window and be like, my car's here. I drove home, and then have to backtrack and like have to ask my friends what I did, and they would all tell me, and I would be full of shame, and I would have to apologize to everyone. And it was interesting because like I would have characterized myself as like, if I had won a high school superlative, it would have been most shy, or best smile, or like nicest girl or something. And when I was drinking, like I turned into a bitch. Like it was all that like repressed anger and just repressed feelings of like not, I was like a good girl, and I didn't know that I could have other feelings besides pleasing people, and besides being, you know I was a pretty good student. I was like kind of an overachiever. I was captain of tennis. I was editor of yearbook. Like I so kind of moved, but I had a hard time though. Like I had a hard time like adjusting to high school, and then I was petrified to go off to college. Like a lot of people that I knew at that time like wanted to go to school. They couldn't wait. They couldn't wait to go to college, like get away, like free reign. Like I was so afraid. I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to leave home. I like was such a homebody. And that's not because like things were always good at home. Things actually like weren't that great at home. So you would have thought I would have wanted to leave, but
Can you share a bit about that? What do you mean things weren't great at home?
I just mean like, so I mean, I look at alcoholism and addiction as a family disease, and it's passed down, and it's perpetuated in family family dynamics, okay, as in addition to like sociological and the larger broader perspective of like society and our culture. But like my family specifically, like there was a lot of mental illness and addiction in my family lineage, and my grandparents and my immediate family, and all of the behaviors and patterns that go with that. Denial being kind of the main operating system, like shame, perfectionism, really low self-esteem, anger, like really. So my dad, I mean, I have a great relationship with him now today, but he was just kind of a rageaholic. And so I didn't feel safe. Like I didn't feel safe growing up. And so like I was constantly reaching for some feeling, even if it was a false feeling of safety, and like, or like some kind of protector, like a shield. Like, at least if you're not going to keep me safe, like let me not know what's going on. So like let me, you know, check out with like binge eating or binge drinking or completely into oblivion so that I don't know what's going on, because like it hurts so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you grow up with in a nuclear family? Were your parents together and with your siblings?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And did they feel the same way? Can you respond to that? Are your siblings also in recovery at all, or?
Well, I probably I don't want to tell anyone's story, but I do have yeah, I have two siblings out of five that have gotten sober in the last year.
Wow. Amazing.
Year plus, like year and a half and year less than a year. So like yeah, and they've done recovery their own way, right? But like it was indicated that they needed to get sober. And so yeah, I definitely wasn't the only one that had addiction tendencies. And I think in a big family, uh, uh like I think for me, I spend so much time like exploring family dynamics, and I'm really fascinated by roles in groups, and how people assume roles, and how it changes depending on who's in the group. And I, you know, I found ACOA, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. It's a 12-step program, but I found it a few years after I got sober, and it really helped me like understand my own family of origin, and just like understand my role, and how I could like you know, change my role, shift my role.
Right.
Because there's nothing, family of origin is like, that's where it all starts, right? Like you recreate your relationships that you've had in as a kid, you recreate them as an adult. And so going back to the source, like for me, was so powerful and is so powerful. And yeah, I don't know what else to say on that. But
do you mean that going back to the source, meaning going back to your father being a rageaholic and you being able to point to that as part of why you became an addict?
well, yeah, I mean, going back to the source, and being able to point to that and kind of understand like that everybody plays a part, that like addiction doesn't happen in a vacuum. And so like, and it's not about casting blame on our parents or our siblings or anything like that. It's more about like, well, what was their part in this, and what was my part, and how can I take responsibility for my part, and just see how the interconnectedness. So yeah, I think that his temperament and parenting style contributed to my I was really sensitive kid too. And I think that you know, perhaps, well, not that this is the best thing to compare yourself to your siblings, but we weren't all affected in the same way, right? Even though we had the same parents. And
Right.
so that comes down to like our own temperament and our own, what happens when we take in our environment and how we process it. So like that's what I've had a lot of fun like understanding, like like yeah. And I also think that I also think that it was easy for me to like, it was easy for me to start using alcohol because I don't know, anyone who's like in a big family might be able to relate to this, but there wasn't enough, there was so much going on, and there was so much chaos and so many people's needs that like it was kind of easy to like slip through the cracks, so to speak, and just kind of like, you know, do whatever you wanted, and if you wanted to get fucked up. And my dad, I mean, when he was home, I would say he raged a lot, but he was actually like a workaholic, so he was just not even there. He was like at work all the time and really successful, and so there's that extra layer of like just pressure to like achieve. And I grew up, so
like pressure placed on you to achieve.
well, my own internalized pressure. Like my parents actually didn't put any pressure on me to get straight A's. I put it on myself, like truly. And I'm not like saying that as like, oh, like I'll just absolve them of any responsibility. Like they would actually be like, Sasha, go to bed. Like it's okay if you don't get an A on this. And I was it was my own internalized messages, you know?
So in your story, we've kind of led up to, you know, you were a freshman and then you were a senior and you're binge drinking and your friends are seeing this sort of, you know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you know, at school you're one way and on the weekends you're another way, or, and so that's kind of where we left off. So let's keep going with your story moving after high school.
Yeah. So after high school, I went off to college and I guess I got introduced to cocaine in college and I really liked it. And it was kind of an instant love affair. And I started doing it a lot, and I stopped going to classes. So like I essentially failed out, and I I guess I was like 19 or something, and I moved to the beach, a really small beach town in North Carolina that I could work at like a restaurant. And I got a job at a restaurant, and like I made all these friends, and this was actually a town that like my family grew up going to this beach. So it was like a beach that I knew. It wasn't just like a random beach. It was actually like I had connections there already, and like it was sort of like a second home. And I started just partying a lot, and it was really easy to do because I was working in a restaurant. I was waiting tables. I was working every night. I was getting off late. I was getting like instant cash. And I mean, I don't know if anyone knows like who's had experience, but the restaurant industry is it's one of the industries of a few that is notorious for drug abuse, and it's so easy. And I think that like it can breed you to be an addict if it wasn't already showing itself. Like it can really activate it. And so I got really into coke, and I got really into drinking. But I wasn't even 21 yet. So what happened was like there was this bar in town where it was the only bar to go to. It was just, there was one bar, and that was the main bar, and like that's where everybody went, and that was the place to be. And I would go there even though I was underage, and I would get there already drunk, and I would be like I would try to sneak more drinks once I got there, try to get people to buy me shots. But you know, I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. And I got kicked out. I got blacklisted. The owner of the bar, and it was the only place to be. So like, I didn't know what to do because all my friends were still going to be there. And
Why did you get kicked out and blacklisted from that bar? Because you were underage or because of your behavior?
because of my behavior and being underage, like being drunk in their facility, even though they didn't serve me, or maybe they did, right? Like, could get them in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And so I was a liability at that point. And I was driving there, and I was driving off drunk from their parking lot. And it was just, a lot of times the alcohol people would be undercover, like, and they didn't want to get in trouble. Like, they didn't want to get, and rightfully so. So the owner of this bar, like, told me, like, you're an alcoholic. You need to go get yourself help. And he blatantly said this to me, and I was like 20 years old. And I was thinking to myself, like, I am too young to I'm too young to like brand myself with that label. Like, there's no way, like, everyone my age drinks, binge drinks. This is what you do. This is what college age kids do. Like, why am I being singled out here? Like, this isn't fair.
Yeah.
I was like very entitled about it. I was like, this isn't fucking fair. Like, how come nobody else is getting called out? And like, cause there were a lot of other alcoholics, but for some reason, like, I still stood out. And like, and so I actually went to like 3 AA meetings that after that happened. It was a catalyst of sorts to like kind of get me to listen. I mean, he planted the seed.
So when he said those words to you, you are an alcoholic, you need to get help. What was I know you said that it planted the seed, but did you absorb that as maybe the truth?
Yeah, I did. And you know what? Like, I did. And I think the bigger part of me, like my higher self, knew that it could really be true. And like, this could really be like my ticket out of this suffering.
So you felt that you were suffering.
Oh yeah, I knew I was suffering, and I knew that like I was being reckless, and that it was only a matter of time before I like really fucked up. Like,
Wow.
Killed myself, killed someone else, did something. You know, I think that year I had fallen off a balcony, and I had like not been able to walk for like a couple of days, and I got put on probation at my restaurant job because everybody found out, because like I said, small town. And I got put, okay, so someone from my work, my employer's wife called my sister and told them. And my mom and two of my sisters staged an intervention on me to like, oh my God, Sasha, like, you really, like, you need to like get yourself together. But what they did was they like, for 2 weeks, they took away my phone, and they like basically watched me for 2 weeks. Like, I didn't go off to like rehab or something, or like go get professional help. Like, I was always seeing a therapist. And I would say that my therapists have been amazing and really instrumental in my process. But after this, like, half of my family staged an intervention, it was just like, they were just kind of like, stop doing what you're doing. And they thought that like keeping me hostage for 2 weeks would like fix the problem.
So we're saying staged an intervention, but it wasn't a professionally founded intervention. You know, they weren't working with an interventionist. There was no sort of after plan for getting you.
Oh, right. So it was like a family run intervention. It wasn't a professional one. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So keep going. I'm honestly enthralled with this story. It's amazing.
So, so what happened after that was like I kind of detoxed from all the cocaine I was doing. Like I just got I like sobered up like with my mom, and 2 weeks later, like I went back to my job and I asked them for my job back. I said, I'm really sorry. I'll do better. Like just kind of, and so they gave me my job back, and I kind of laid off the cocaine for like a while, but I drank. So like I continued to drink, and I was like, okay, if I don't do coke and get like super out of my mind and go to work all strung out, then like people will get off my back a little bit, and like I'll buy myself some time to like, I mean, I think that's what I subconsciously thought. I wasn't like, I wasn't consciously thinking that, or maybe I was, but in my addict mind, I was thinking like, how do I get myself out of this? So that was when I like tried. Okay. So that was around the time that like, that the owner of the bar was like, you need help. And that was when I tried AA, like, but like I said, there were all these factors working against me. Like, I didn't think that I truly had a problem. What we know now, like I didn't know then. Like I didn't think that unless you drank every day, you didn't have a problem. Like my grandfather was that type of alcoholic. He drank every day. He never even like, you couldn't tell he was drunk. Like he just was a maintenance alcoholic, and that's what I knew it to be. So I truly didn't think I had a problem, but I was like willing to like go to the meetings and kind of see if I could learn anything. And I also knew that I was suffering, and I was like, okay, maybe this will help. Like maybe I'll learn something that I can use.
So you mentioned a little while ago that you had always been seeing a therapist. Why did you start seeing a therapist in the first place, and how old were you when that started?
Oh, so good question. I started seeing this therapist when I was like 14, and I had really bad depression. And I we're talking all about my addiction, right? But the mental health piece, the mental illness piece is like pretty big part of it, because of course it plays a huge role, and it was part of my self-medication.
So did your parents set that up for you with the therapist? Did they know? Were you asking for it, or did they suggest that you see somebody?
I think, I don't know exactly. My mom was always like really resourceful, and she would like, if we had a problem, like she would try to find a solution. Okay. And like, but I don't remember exactly how this went down, but I know that I was the type of kid that like, I was really like motivated, even though I had these like recurring depressions. I was like really like, I think I probably was like, Mom, I really need help. I really need to talk to someone. Like I was always really close with my mom, so she knew. We have like a close kind of tender relationship where I'll tell her like how I really feel about something. And so she knew that I was like suffering. And so I'm sure that she scouted out people that I could talk to, but I was also the type of kid that was like, I want to go, like, I want to go to therapy. Please send me to therapy. Like, as opposed to being the type of kid that needed to be dragged, you know?
Yeah. So you saw the same therapist from the age of 14 all the way up?
No, I switched around. Like, I saw this, my first therapist, she actually had a husband who was a therapist and a PhD. And a lot of my family saw him and I saw her. And then after that, I think I saw her for a couple years. And then I definitely saw other, like, I switched when I went off to college. And then when I lived at the beach, I saw someone else. But I was pretty much, it was like one of the only consistent things about me. Like, I was always seeing a therapist.
But I think that's really important as a part of your journey, is that you've always valued that opportunity to share yourself and your struggles and what you're going through, and have that other person to bounce, those ideas off of and to share with. And I find that really, it doesn't surprise me then that your life's work now is sort of in doing it, you're paying it back in a way. You're able to help other people that were going through similar things that you've been through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't quite thought about it in those terms, but yeah, I think it definitely paved the way for me to be attracted to this type of work.
Mm-hmm. To see the value in it, right? Like, you must have received tremendous value from all of those years of talking to somebody and being able to, share your feelings.
Oh, I mean, I think some of my therapists, I think not to give them too much power. I'm just like wary of that, but I think saved my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
All
mean,
right. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and like, uh, so yeah, and that's so I do want to kind of, since you kind of went back there, I do want to. This isn't something that I like talk about a ton, but it's super, super important, and I'm like starting to talk about it more. But it's an essential piece of this story, and I think it um, helps piece things together. But let me just take a sip of water. So so um, I started seeing this therapist when I was 14 for depression, and I had like basically a nervous breakdown when I went to high school. Like, I couldn't adjust to high school, and I just was like, I was having anxiety attacks, panic attacks, like depression at the same time, like just lots of different symptoms. And I was like varsity cross country. I was running varsity cross country as an incoming freshman. So I was doing all the things, like I was exercising, I was eating right. My binge eating hadn't really started to get bad. So I was actually more on, like, I was probably underweight, and I was like really used to like restricting, and like I had a runner's body, right? Like I was into like distance running. So I was like really just like really into my body, and so I got on medication, and my parents were really like against medication. And but they didn't want me to be on it, but we didn't really know like what else to do. So this was like 15, 16, 18 years ago or something. And so things were a little different then. And my dad is a doctor, but he really believes in, like, he's a surgeon, and so he doesn't deal a ton with medications, but yeah, definitely a little bit, like pain medications and stuff. But he just he he didn't believe in me being on them. And I remember that I had so much shame about it, but like I would take them, and like I didn't really think they helped. And I felt like sometimes they made it worse. And I'm like, I'm still depressed. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm doing all these things. I'm on medication. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm still depressed. Like, what the fuck? And, but like, so freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, I tried to kill myself. And I like made a legitimate suicide attempt. I tried to overdose on pills, and after that, so it was my senior year, and after that, I had been seeing a therapist the whole time, a psychiatrist, and I ended up getting diagnosed with bipolar. And then I ended up homeschooling the rest of my senior year and kind of getting, I mean, I think that diagnosis and like dealing with that and dealing with the suicide attempt and like everything that came after that was so heavy that like I think I just wanted it to be like, I just wanted to pretend that like it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it really led into me wanting to like, it just added another complicated layer of like why I drank.
Mm-hmm.
And like why I was so self-destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, I think that it's important to mention, and so I wanted to mention that.
I'm really glad you did. Thank you for sharing that, because I know a lot of people listening and watching are going to connect with that. They have similar experiences, either with depression, with mental health issues, with bipolar disorder, or with suicide attempts. So I think it's amazing to be able to share it, and, you know, to be able to listen to somebody who has the courage to be able to share it. So thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So let's keep going. Let's keep going with your story. So now you are at college. And how are you, what is your drinking behavior at college? And what is your, you know, are you doing drugs? What's happening at college?
Well, no, so I wasn't at college. I was living at the beach and I had like dropped out.
Right. Yes.
And so I was just kind of partying and like working and like not really sure what I wanted to do. I felt really, I know I keep saying like, but shame is like, is a constant, you know, in this story. It's a big theme in all these kinds of stories. And I felt so like ashamed that I wasn't in college, like that. I think it led me further into like, okay, if I'm not going to be like, you know, at an Ivy League school, getting an amazing education, I'm going to be like a really fucked up, like just person, and like kind of giving up on myself. Right. Like, so one extreme or the other, all or nothing, like just totally black and white about it. And so I got kind of stuck in like not being in school, and it became a few years passed. And at first I was like, I'm just taking a break. Like I'm taking a year off. You know, I made it kind of sound like good, but I was like so scared inside that I would never go back and I would never get a college degree. And like, oh my God, it's the worst thing in the world if I don't have a college degree. When like, honestly, that's not how I feel about it today. But anyway, so so
you're back at the bar, you're working at the bar, you're not doing cocaine anymore, but you're still drinking. Is that where you're at the beach?
Yes. And I start dating someone. And I start dating a guy who is my first relationship. Which, by the way, like, so this was when I was 22 probably, but like when I was 20, I lost my virginity in a blackout.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like guarded my virginity. Like I had waited till I was 20 because I was so, I hadn't had a boyfriend yet. And so I wasn't going to just like, I wasn't just going to sleep with anyone. But all bets were off when I got, you know, obliterated. And so I was like really, that Jekyll Hyde thing, I was like super hypersexual. Like I almost was like a manic drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came out of a blackout having sex with someone for the first time ever. And I like didn't know how to process that. So like I kind of went crazy for the next 2 years, and then I met this guy who I started dating. Like I said, he was my first boyfriend, and we got really serious really quick, really codependent, really addicted to each other. And he was an addict too. We were both addicts, and we dated for like 2.5 years, and I thought I was going to marry him. And but I knew that something wasn't right. Like I knew that, like, even though I had nothing to base it off of, and I didn't really have like a great models for relationships, and it was my first boyfriend, so I didn't have anyone to compare it to, like I knew that like this is not how it's supposed to feel. And so like I ended up going back to school and leaving the beach where I was living with him. We lived together, leaving him to finish my undergrad degree. And that was, I think, like my higher self, that was my higher self's way of like kind of like getting me out. And like,
Wow.
because I couldn't really see it when I was in it. Like, so when I went back to school and I had the distance from him, and he's a great guy, by the way. So like, this is not about like bashing him, but he, when I was living away from him at school, I could see how unhealthy our relationship was. So much better. I had perspective that I didn't have when we were constantly with each other 24/7.
But even the fact that you were able to leave that relationship, again, like you say, not having had any experience with relationships, not really having necessarily modeled, you know, having other relationships modeled to you that were healthy. What were those whispers for people watching and listening? I want them, you know, maybe they're in relationships or they've had this kind of experience where they're not able to leave. And what was it? What were the messages that were coming to you that you knew that this was not healthy, even though you didn't have anything to compare it to?
That's a great question, Sarah. So I think that I think people said stuff to me like, he controls you. And I was like, what do you mean? He just loves me a lot. Like, I like didn't get it. And I think one of the things that stood out to me, now that you're asking this and I'm trying to go back and think, like, we couldn't go like a minute without talking to each other. So like we were like so like just like attached at the hip, and I thought that was like, that meant you really love someone. But like I now understand that it's like a lack of boundaries and a lack of like, autonomy to like not be able to let the other person out of your sight. And once you let them out of your sight, you have to call them and make sure they're okay. And like, so that's what it was like. And I felt like I was that type of person, but I felt like he was even more so. And so being on the other side of that, like I felt really suffocated. Like I felt trapped. I felt like, and I tried to break up with him because I like knew something was off, and like he begged me not to do it, and like he like threatened to hurt himself. And that's when I was like, this is bad. This is really like not how it's supposed to be. I just, there was that really, really strong feeling of like just feeling trapped. And I know that like what pushed me to go to school and leave was that I'd be free. Like I knew that was part of it, like looking back.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Okay.
even though like I didn't want to go to school, I probably like didn't really want to go to school, I just like subconsciously wanted to get away from the relationship. it got me to go back to school.
I mean, honestly, however we get to that next stage in our lives, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Like however it's supposed to play out. And I love that the knowing that no matter what has happened in my past, that's why I don't have any regrets. It's every single decision and step that I've taken have led me to the point where I'm now sitting here having a beautiful conversation with you. And so I
Yeah.
love that idea that, no regrets, nothing, no time wasted, everything on purpose. So, all right. So now you are at college and you're doing your undergrad. So keep walking us through your drinking behavior. And are you using any drugs at this point either, or as well?
No, so at this point I'm like really serious about school, and I'm not drinking at school, but I'm saving it for like binges and benders. And so I'm like really what I told people then and all my friends, because I went back to the beach in the summer to work because it was like a really good restaurant job. I made good money to save up. So but it was like my Sin City, that area, just because like I so I would tell all my friends from back there, like, oh, I'm detoxing, like, and I was somewhat healthy. Like I smoked a pack a day of Marlboro Lights, but I was like training for a 5K, and I was like I would go to the gym and I eat healthy, even though like at that time I felt lean cuisine was healthy, and like I mean I don't think that now. So like, but I was just like, I was either like I was waiting to party to go back there and party, or I was at school being like a serious student. And that continued for like a couple of years. And I actually only remember a few times that I drank when I was at school, and it would be like on a Saturday, a Saturday night when and I remember getting Coke. Like as soon as I would drink, I would be like, where's the Coke? It just sets off that whole system in the brain. And but it was so hard for me to like balance partying and being a student that I didn't make a habit of that. I was either like I said, I was either like at school, or I was like, being a party bum. It was not both at the same time.
Yeah, you really compartmentalized it.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't have been able to do well. So so then I was seeing a therapist at school as part of like the tuition. I had a therapist in the student center, and I loved her. Okay. She was like she was actually like a grad student, I think. She was like in her training. And she was this Asian woman who like talked to me in metaphor a lot, that I really understood. Like I really love metaphors, and she just I just really like took to her, and she was one of my most valuable therapists I've had, I think, in terms of like helping me see what I couldn't see. And so when I was 25, I was ending another summer at the beach, and I was getting ready to go back to school, and I had partied all summer long, and I felt so disgusting, and I like felt so ashamed of all my decisions. And I got back to school, and it was going to be my last year of school. Like I would have been graduating. That was my senior year at 26. And my therapist, like I told her all about my summer, and she was just like, she gave me an AA pamphlet, and like she didn't really say anything. She wasn't like bossy or like telling me something that I had to do, or like whatever directive. She just gave me this pamphlet and kind of gently, like, I think suggested that I go.
Yeah.
And so I started going. That was my true introduction to sobriety. Like, I started going to a meeting every week on Friday nights, once a week. It was a speaker meeting, and the speaker spoke the whole time so that I wouldn't have to talk. And I mean, that's why I picked that meeting, so that I wouldn't have to talk. And I just listened to people's stories, and I like loved it because I loved listening to people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I obviously I could relate, but I'm one of those people that like can relate to everyone almost. So like I still questioned whether I had a problem and whether I had to quit for good for like the first 2 years.
Why?
Because I don't know why exactly, besides like the powers of denial and how strong and thick it is, like the fog, and you can't see through it. Actually, I will say, like, and I know my family was not very supportive in the beginning, and I remember a lot of them questioning me, like, do you really think that you, like, I remember one of my sisters saying to me, don't you think that this is a little premature?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you really want to put this on yourself? Like, you know, and quit for good? Like, can't you just, like, why does it have to be like you diagnosed yourself with this type of, and that was so, like, that influenced me so much that because, you know, like I said, going back to family, I think that I wasn't able to see, like, I've had such a strong tie to family that I didn't really like separate myself until much later than people normally do. Like, differentiate myself from my family, like I'm my own person. So their opinions meant so much to me, like more than my own.
Oh my gosh, Sasha, I'm going to say that a lot of people, doesn't matter how old we get, that's a common theme for a lot of people throughout our entire lives. So
Yeah.
that's huge. And I just wanted to touch on, so your family had staged that family intervention years prior. So they did not expect for you to quit back then. They just wanted you to kind of notice your behavior and tweak it a little bit. Like if they are not even accepting that you are getting into recovery at the age of 26, what were they thinking when you were 21 and they staged this, family intervention?
I don't know. Good question. I think they just wanted me to get a hold of it.
Yeah, right.
But you not understanding what addiction is, like they just wanted me to stop getting in trouble and stop being a dumbass. So like they wanted me to control it, right? But like that doesn't work.
Yeah, I can understand that. I know we've heard other stories out there of people saying, families are just like, would you just pull yourself together? And I even have some of that experience in my own life where my parents had, written me, my dad had written me a couple of letters, just trying to help me to get a handle on it, but never the notion of, that you're an alcoholic or you have an addiction issue or you need to stop this, but just try to make this not so crazy in your life. So,
yeah.
I get
well,
that.
It's like they don't know what to say because the education isn't there. Like they don't get it.
And I think it really shines a light on their drinking behavior. And I think that nobody wants that. Nobody who's drinking wants a light shone on what they're doing. So I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Keep going. This is amazing. Honestly, really, really appreciate your vulnerability and your openness. So thank you for sharing all of this. Really, really.
Oh my gosh. It's my pleasure. I'm trying to really like go there. Like go back to that time, I haven't really told my story for in a while. So, thank you for the opportunity because it's really fun. And so, okay, so she's like, so I'm going to AA once a week, every week, and I end up graduating that year, and I moved back to the DC area. I moved, so I don't go back to the beach. I move back to like where I'm from.
And sorry, so when you're going to AA meetings once a week, are you sober at that time, or are you still kind of dabbling with alcohol? Are you still drinking?
Oh no, I'm sober completely. And you know what kept me sober was, I mean, fear. Like fear kept me sober, and I also was worried so much about what people thought that I knew that like if I drank, so many people would be like, I knew she couldn't do it.
Wow.
And so I was like gonna prove people wrong. Like I'm not gonna like it's just an ego thing. Like I'm not gonna let you. So that was driving me for like the first year probably, because I didn't I still had like a lot of negative behaviors. Like I dove into yoga, and yoga helped me. So I would say like yoga and AA in the beginning, but I still like isolated all the time, and I started using food again in a really, really big negative way. So I moved back to the DC area, and like that's 10 months later. So that's like 10 months after I first get sober. And I kind of get plugged into the AA there, and I get a sponsor, and I didn't have a sponsor before that. And I start going to like more meetings, and I have a friend who I went to high school with who's sober, and she's like got sober a year before me. So she kind of takes me under her wing and like is like, Sasha, let's go to this meeting. Cause I really had to be like, I really didn't like meetings, like, because I would get so nervous, and the social anxiety, that was pretty much why. I didn't want to have to talk to people, and like, but I liked, if I could go and just listen, then I would want to do that. But I hated sharing. And that changed over time. I finally like overcame it, and now it's funny. I can't like. I have a hard time going to meetings and not sharing. Like I like have to share.
That's awesome.
So I got the sponsor and like started working with her, and started like, what did I do? I got more into yoga. I went through yoga teacher training. I was seeing a therapist still, I think a new therapist. I did that for a few years. I found other programs that really spoke to me, like the one I mentioned, ACOA. I eventually found Al-Anon, which was really good for some of my other, when I found my siblings like struggling with alcoholism, and because I had been through it, I felt like I needed to have the answers. And I felt like I was supposed to be the one to like guide, guide my parents, just like take ownership of it and take responsibility of the process. Like that's when I hit some kind of emotional bottom, and I reached out to Al-Anon, and like it really saved my ass. Because like I learned the depths of my codependent patterns, and just how to detach with love. And I think through yoga teacher training, I realized like that I wanted to maybe do something. I was working at a sleep disorder center, and it was like an entry-level job because I had my bachelor's in psychology, and it was like very typical of the types of jobs that you can get with that. And I was like, I really don't like this. I don't like sitting at a desk all day. Like I don't, but what else am I going to do? And like, I was thinking of like what I could do. Like, what should I go back and study to be a therapist? Should I go get my master's? Should I go to PA school? I really seriously thought about going the medical route and being a physician's assistant. And then I found this program that was local at Georgetown for a coaching certification. And I was like, that looks like really cool. It just, you know why it spoke to me? It was because for the first time, and because I had been in the system, the mental health system, for years and years and years, and been told like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Like, this is your diagnosis. And like it just was, there's a lot about that way of looking at things that's like really disempowering. And the coaching industry is so like solution focused and like progress forward, like we're not going to get stuck in the past or why you did something. We're going to like be, you know, more positive about things. Like, what can we do now? You know, like, what can we do? And like, what's the action that we can take? And I just was like, oh my God. Like, as soon as I like read, because I didn't really know what coaching was, and people don't really know what coaching is even still. Like, they're just like, what? You're a health coach? So you tell people what to eat? Like, oh my God, yeah, okay. What? But like, so I did this program and I really fell in love with the process and the approach. And then I like launched my own business from that, and just decided to like, I wanted to like lead people through recovery. And I don't know, I think that brings us sort of full circle here.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. And I find it no surprise that you know, your foray into the recovery world was AA meetings, where those speaker meetings really drew you in and you loved listening to the stories. And, you know, sort of fast forward to now you being a recovery and life coach and healer, where you get to listen to people's stories and then you help them to take those action steps, so that we're not just regressing to the past and trying to point to all of the reasons why we are the way we are, but it's, and not that that's not part of it. We like listening to those stories, but there's also a point to be made that, okay, we're here where we are now. What can we do about it from this place? You know, we have all of that information behind us, but now let's move from here into a new place. So I think it's honestly no surprise that it's kind of come about organically in your life. Yeah.
Totally.
I love it. Thank you so much for this. Oh my gosh, I know a ton of people are going to be resonating with your story, resonating with you. Sasha Tozzi, how do people get in touch with you? How do they go further if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, my website is probably my website, sashaptozzi.com. And I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, all under that name, Sasha Tozzi or Sasha P. Tozzi. And you can, I have a contact page on my website. If you need to send me like a personal note, you can do that there. Or just on any social media, like I'm pretty good about responding to everything that I get and everything I see. So if you wanted to get in touch with me that way too, you can leave a comment or send a private message on Instagram or Facebook.
Fabulous. And you also have an amazing blog where people can, you know, sort of connect with you that way as well. I know sometimes it's nice to go a little bit deeper and to learn a little bit more. And your blog is a great way for people to get to know you a bit better. Sasha, thank you so much for being with me today. I can tell you, you've helped a lot of people just in terms of being able to, you know, connect to people in a way that is truly authentic, and sharing your story from that vulnerable place of letting people know that they're not alone. You know, so many people feel, especially when we just start out on a recovery journey, or we want to get sober, or we're not sure where the heck to look. And oh my gosh, being able to hear from other people like you felt, you know, listening to those speaker meetings. I'm curious, do you still, are you still a part of the AA family? Is that something you still use as a tool in your toolbox?
I do. It's one of my many tools. And it's definitely in there. I've added so much more to my toolbox, but it's one of my tools, and I get something there that I can't really substitute with anything else. And I still have my same sponsor, and she's she's very flexible, and we work across different programs sometimes, like depending on what I need. But she it's amazing. Like, she's been with me this whole time since I started, and we have a really great relationship. She's one of my like angels. So yeah.
I think that's awesome to even touch on the concept of getting a sponsor for those people who are looking to get into AA and to then maybe seek out a sponsor. I think it's really important to find somebody that you resonate with and that moves and shifts with you and that is really supportive. And so I think that it's okay. You know, you've been with your sponsor for a long time, but for other people, they might, you know, want to switch sponsor. You know, they want to move into a different relationship at different points in their recovery process. So I think it's
Oh, totally.
right.
And and that's actually a great point. And I think that like I do that with therapists. Like, I switch when I'm feeling like it's ready, like I'm ready to move on, or like I feel like I've outgrown the dynamic or something like that. So I think either way, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just about being true to what you need.
Well put. Well, thank you so much for this. I can't wait for people to watch and to listen. You're amazing. I just love what you're doing in the world. Keep doing your work. It matters. It's important. You're doing awesome stuff. Thank you, Sasha.
Sarah, thank you. Thank you for facilitating this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful
You're
day.
amazing.
You're amazing. Thank you so much. To get access to all of the free videos and interviews, visit sobrietystartshere.com.